Behind the Mask, Uncovering and Overcoming Depression in Men. Written and published by Irmici. Feel free to subscribe for more content. Now let's get into the book. Introduction. The Hidden Crisis of Men's Mental Health. Depression. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Like when your favorite team loses the big game, or when you realize you've been staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. for the third night in a row. But for many men, depression isn't just a passing feeling. It's a silent, heavy weight that's often hidden behind a forced smile, a busy schedule, or a tough-it-out attitude. This isn't just about feeling a little off. It's about struggling in a way that's often overlooked and misunderstood, even by those closest to us. Men face a unique set of challenges when it comes to mental health, partly because society has conditioned them to believe that they must be strong, stoic, and always in control. Admitting to feeling overwhelmed, sad, or just not okay feels like breaking an unwritten rule of manhood. So what do many men do? They keep quiet. They push through. They man up. But behind closed doors, that stiff upper lip often cracks under pressure, and the unspoken struggle can lead to serious consequences, including relationships falling apart, substance abuse, and in the most tragic cases even suicide. The truth is, depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how tough you are, how successful you've been, or how many people count on you. And yet, men often find themselves trapped in a cycle of silence and suffering because they feel they can't, or shouldn't, ask for help. This book aims to break that cycle. We're going to explore the unique ways depression shows up in men, why it often goes unnoticed, and most importantly, how to start the journey toward healing. We'll tackle the serious stuff but with a light touch because, let's face it, talking about feelings can be awkward, even a little uncomfortable. But it's also necessary. Think of this book as your guide to navigating those uncharted emotional waters, with a few laughs along the way, because sometimes the best way to face the darkness is with a little lightheartedness. So, whether you're reading this for yourself, for someone you care about, or just because you're curious, welcome. Let's break the silence together, one page at a time. Chapter 1. Recognizing the Signs, How Depression Manifests Differently in Men. When we think of depression, the typical image that comes to mind is someone who's sad, withdrawn, maybe crying a lot, or unable to get out of bed. But here's the thing. Depression doesn't always show up with a "hello, I'm depressed" sign. Especially in men, it can be a master of disguise. While women might be more likely to openly express sadness, men often experience and display depression differently, through anger, irritability, or risky behavior. It's like depression put on a mask and tried to sneak past you without you even noticing. The angry sadness. How depression wears the mask of irritability. Imagine this, you're stuck in traffic, someone cuts you off and suddenly you're furious. We're not talking the regular "ugh, traffic sucks" kind of annoyed. This is a full-on, "I'm ready to audition for the next Hulk movie" kind of anger. For many men, anger isn't just a reaction to a bad driver, it's a symptom of something deeper. Depression in men often shows up as irritability, a constant undercurrent of frustration that seems out of proportion to the situation. It's as if your emotions got rewired and instead of feeling sad, you feel mad. This anger isn't just a random mood swing. It's a sign that your emotional wiring might be short-circuiting. Men are often raised to believe that anger is a more acceptable emotion than sadness, so it's not surprising that depression can express itself this way. But if you find yourself constantly irritated or lashing out over little things, it might be time to look beyond the anger and ask what's really going on beneath the surface. Risk-taking and recklessness. Depression on the fast lane. Ever feel like speeding down the highway, taking unnecessary risks, or saying yes to things you'd normally avoid? This isn't just about wanting to live a little on the edge, it could be depression acting out. For some men, depression doesn't sit quietly in the corner, it roars. Risky behaviors, whether it's excessive drinking, gambling, or even throwing yourself into dangerous situations, can be an unconscious attempt to escape the emotional pain. It's as if your brain is saying, "I don't want to feel numb anymore, so let's do something that makes me feel anything." While these behaviors might feel like a momentary escape, they're often just a detour that leads straight back into the same dark alley of depression. The thrill is temporary, but the underlying sadness remains. The "I'm fine" syndrome, how men hide depression in plain sight. Let's talk about one of the greatest performances men put on, the "I'm fine" act. You know the one, everything's falling apart, but when someone asks how you're doing, you flash that smile and say, "I'm good." Men are often experts at hiding their true feelings, either out of a fear of being judged or simply because they don't know how to put their emotions into words. Depression often gets camouflaged behind humor, busyness, or a relentless pursuit of success. Ever noticed how some of the funniest, most put-together guys are struggling the most? That's because humor can be a coping mechanism, a way to deflect attention from what's really going on. But behind the jokes and the hustle, there's often a deep well of pain that's been left unaddressed. It's not just in your head, physical symptoms of depression. If you're feeling constantly tired, dealing with unexplained aches, or struggling with sleep, it might not just be the side effects of a demanding life. It could be depression knocking on your door. Men are more likely to report physical symptoms of depression, like back pain, headaches, or digestive issues, rather than the emotional ones. It's like your body is trying to tell you something that your mind refuses to acknowledge. Depression isn't just about feeling sad, it's a full-body experience. Ignoring these symptoms won't make them go away, it just leaves you stuck in a loop of silent suffering. The takeaway: spotting the signs and breaking the silence. Recognizing depression in men requires looking beyond the obvious and understanding that it often wears a different face. Anger, irritability, risk-taking, and physical symptoms are not just random quirks. They're cries for help that get lost in translation. The first step in tackling this hidden crisis is to recognize that these signs are not weaknesses. They're signals that something needs to change. If you see yourself or someone you know in these descriptions, know that it's okay to not be okay. Depression doesn't make you any less of a man. The bravest thing you can do is acknowledge it, talk about it, and take steps toward healing. Because at the end of the day, true strength isn't about suffering in silence. It's about having the courage to face what's really going on inside. Chapter 2: The Weight of Expectations, Societal Pressures and Their Impact on Men's Mental Health. Let's take a moment to address the elephant in the room. Society has set some pretty unrealistic expectations for men. From an early age, boys are often taught to be tough, independent, and unflinchingly stoic. Tears? Those are for sissies. Vulnerability? That's just a fancy word for weakness. And asking for help? Forget it, that's practically a cardinal sin. By the time they're grown, many men have internalized these messages so deeply that they become a sort of unspoken code. The man code. The problem with the man code is that it leaves little room for real human experiences like feeling sad, scared, overwhelmed, or heaven forbid, needing support. Instead, men are often left to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders without ever letting on that it's heavy. And when that weight becomes too much to bear, depression can slip in, turning those societal pressures into a full-blown mental health crisis. This chapter dives into how those unrealistic expectations impact men's mental health and why it's time to rewrite the rules. The myth of the invincible man, strength as a double-edged sword. Society loves the image of the strong, invincible man. He's the hero in every action movie, the rugged cowboy, the stoic businessman who never lets anything faze him. Strength is celebrated, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But here's where things get tricky. When strength is defined as never showing weakness, it becomes a double-edged sword. Men are taught to keep their emotions in check, to be the protector, the provider, the rock that everyone else leans on. But what happens when the rock starts to crumble? The expectation to always be strong often leads men to suppress their emotions rather than address them. Feeling overwhelmed? Push it down. Experiencing anxiety? Shake it off. Struggling to keep up with life's demands? Just work harder. This constant emotional suppression doesn't make the feelings go away, it just buries them deeper, where they fester and grow. Eventually, these buried emotions manifest as depression, but because they've been hidden for so long, they often go unrecognized and untreated. Be a man, the most damaging phrase you'll ever hear. Be a man. It's a phrase that gets thrown around like confetti at a parade, often intended as a motivational push or a way to encourage boys to toughen up. But beneath those three little words lies a world of implied expectations. Don't cry, don't complain, don't show fear, and definitely don't admit that you're struggling. The phrase "be a man" doesn't just shape behavior, it shapes identities. It creates a rigid box of what it means to be masculine, leaving little room for emotions that don't fit neatly inside. When men are constantly told to be a man, they internalize the idea that anything less than stoic toughness is a failure. This creates a toxic cycle where emotions are bottled up, mental health issues are ignored, and depression takes root in silence. The pressure to conform to this narrow definition of manhood can lead to feelings of inadequacy, shame, and self-doubt, all of which fuel the fire of depression. It's like being trapped in a never-ending performance, where the only acceptable role is the unbreakable man who never falters. The provider trap: how financial pressures fuel depression. Let's talk money, or more specifically, the crushing weight of financial responsibility that many men feel. The idea that men must be the primary providers for their families is deeply ingrained in our culture. Even in today's world, where dual-income households are more common, many men still feel an immense pressure to succeed financially. They're taught that their worth is tied to their ability to provide, and when financial struggles hit, whether it's job loss, debt, or simply not making as much as they'd hoped, it can feel like a personal failure. Financial stress is one of the most significant contributors to depression in men. The constant worry about bills, the fear of not measuring up, and the anxiety about the future can create a toxic mix of emotions that often go unspoken. Men might work longer hours, take on side hustles, or try to fix the problem on their own, but the mental toll continues to build. Depression creeps in, masked by stress and exhaustion, but because men are conditioned to keep pushing through, they rarely acknowledge the emotional cost. Emotional isolation, when the lone wolf mentality backfires. Society loves a lone wolf, strong, silent, independent. But the reality is even the toughest wolves need a pack. Unfortunately, men are often conditioned to go it alone, to view emotional support as a sign of weakness rather than a basic human need. This mentality creates a dangerous cycle of emotional isolation, where men withdraw rather than reach out, convinced that they must handle their struggles on their own. Emotional isolation isn't just lonely, it's a breeding ground for depression. Without a support system, men are left to battle their inner demons in silence. Friendships often become superficial, limited to light-hearted banter or shared activities, while deeper conversations about feelings and struggles remain off-limits. Over time, this lack of emotional connection can lead to a sense of disconnection and hopelessness, fueling the cycle of depression. The hidden cost of success, when achievement comes at a price. We live in a world that idolizes success. Climbing the corporate ladder, earning a big paycheck, and being seen as a high achiever are often seen as the pinnacle of manhood. But what happens when the pursuit of success becomes all-consuming? For many men, the relentless drive to succeed can lead to burnout, anxiety, and, you guessed it, depression. The problem isn't ambition itself, it's the idea that success must come at the expense of everything else, including mental health. Men often feel pressured to keep going no matter the cost because slowing down or stepping back feels like failure. They sacrifice sleep, neglect their relationships, and ignore their own well-being in the pursuit of achievement. And while they might be ticking all the boxes on the outside, internally they're unraveling. Depression sets in, disguised as workaholism or perfectionism, but the root cause is the relentless pressure to live up to an unrealistic standard of success. Redefining strength, the power of vulnerability. Here's a radical thought. What if being a man didn't mean bottling up your emotions or pretending everything's fine? What if strength was redefined as the ability to be honest about your struggles, to ask for help when you need it, and to embrace vulnerability as a form of courage rather than weakness? The truth is, the man code is outdated. It's time for a new narrative, one that allows men to be fully human with all the messy emotions that come with it. Vulnerability doesn't make you less of a man. In fact, it takes immense strength to confront your feelings and admit when you're struggling. The more we talk about mental health, the more we dismantle the harmful stereotypes that keep men trapped in silence. By redefining strength, we create space for men to express their emotions, seek support, and ultimately break free from the chains of societal expectations. The takeaway: breaking free from the weight of expectations. The weight of societal expectations can feel crushing, but it's important to remember that you don't have to carry it alone. Depression doesn't make you weak, and asking for help doesn't make you less of a man. It's time to break free from the outdated rules of the man code and embrace a more authentic version of manhood, one that allows for vulnerability, connection, and self-compassion. If you're feeling the weight of these expectations, know that it's okay to let go. You don't have to be invincible, you just have to be human. By challenging the pressures society places on men, we can create a world where mental health is prioritized, where emotions are validated, and where strength is measured not by how much you can endure, but by your willingness to face what's inside. Chapter 3: The Mask of Masculinity, Why Men Hide Their Struggles. Let's face it, men are masters of disguise. No, we're not talking about capes and masks, but the subtle ways men hide their true feelings behind a carefully crafted facade. It's like an invisible cloak that shields the world from what's really going on inside. The funny guy who's always cracking jokes? He might be battling inner demons you'd never guess. The stoic leader who seems unshakable? He's probably faced nights where sleep was replaced by a relentless cycle of anxious thoughts. This chapter delves into why men hide their struggles and how this invisibility act often leads to silent suffering. The Great Pretender, the art of looking fine when you're not. Have you ever been in a room full of people, smiling, chatting, and on the outside looking like you have it all together, but inside you feel like you're screaming? It's not just you. Many men are experts at pretending everything's fine when in reality they're anything but. Men are conditioned to wear masks, to show the world a version of themselves that fits the mold of what's expected. strong, unemotional, and always in control. The "I'm fine" syndrome is more than just a polite response. It's a survival tactic. It's a way to avoid awkward conversations, keep up appearances, and protect yourself from vulnerability. After all, admitting that you're struggling goes against everything most men have been taught. Society has sold the idea that showing any sign of weakness is unacceptable, so men become experts at keeping their real emotions under wraps. But this constant act of pretending can lead to emotional exhaustion and, eventually, depression. Humor as a shield, the funny guy's hidden struggle. We all know the funny guy, the one who's always got a joke, a witty comeback, and a laugh to share. He's the life of the party, the guy who never seems to take anything too seriously. But what if the humor is just a mask? For many men, humor isn't just a way to entertain. It's a defense mechanism, a way to deflect from deeper issues. It's easier to make people laugh than to let them see your pain. Comedians often talk about using humor as a coping mechanism, and the same goes for everyday guys. That quick-witted banter can be a shield that keeps people at arm's length, protecting you from questions you don't want to answer. But when the jokes stop and the laughter fades, the underlying sadness still lingers. The problem with using humor as a mask is that while it might lighten the mood temporarily, it doesn't fix the core issues. It's like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. It covers the surface but does nothing for the pain underneath. The lone warrior. Why men avoid asking for help. One of the most persistent myths about masculinity is that real men handle their problems on their own. The lone warrior archetype, strong, silent, independent, is idolized in movies, books, and even in everyday life. But this relentless self-reliance can be a trap. Men are often conditioned to believe that asking for help is a sign of failure, that they should be able to fix things themselves, whether it's a leaky faucet or a fractured mind. This mentality can be incredibly isolating. Instead of reaching out when things get tough, men often retreat further into themselves, convinced that they must shoulder their burdens alone. The fear of appearing weak or incompetent keeps them silent, even when they desperately need support. Depression thrives in this isolation, feeding on the belief that no one would understand, or worse, that asking for help would make things worse. The perfection trap, the pressure to appear unbreakable. Another mask men often wear is that of perfection. The perfect job, the perfect family, the perfect life, it's all part of the image that many men feel pressured to maintain. Social media has only amplified this pressure, with constant comparisons and the need to project an idealized version of one's life. But perfection is exhausting, and trying to live up to an impossible standard can take a significant toll on mental health. Perfectionism doesn't just mean striving for success, it means never allowing yourself to show cracks. Even the smallest mistake feels catastrophic, as if any sign of imperfection would unravel the whole facade. This constant need to appear unbreakable can lead to anxiety, self-doubt, and eventually depression, as men become trapped in an endless cycle of trying to be something they're not. Emotional armor, numbing out as a coping mechanism. When the world expects you to be tough all the time, it's no wonder many men resort to numbing their emotions as a way to cope. This emotional armor can take many forms: alcohol, drugs, excessive work, or even zoning out in front of the TV for hours on end. These behaviors aren't just bad habits. They're attempts to escape the uncomfortable reality of feeling vulnerable. Numbing out doesn't solve the problem, it just puts it on mute. The more men avoid dealing with their feelings, the more those feelings build up, like steam in a pressure cooker. Eventually, something's got to give, and often it's mental health that pays the price. Depression can creep in quietly, disguised as fatigue, lack of motivation, or just a general sense of apathy toward life. The cost of wearing the mask, hidden pain and unseen battles. The problem with wearing a mask is that it gets heavy. The effort of constantly pretending to be okay, of holding everything together on the outside while falling apart on the inside, is exhausting. And over time, this emotional labor takes a toll. Men who hide their struggles often experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression because they're not just battling their internal demons, they're also battling the fear of being found out. Hiding your struggles might feel like self-protection, but it's actually self-sabotage. The more you hide, the more isolated you become, and the harder it is to break the cycle of silent suffering. Depression thrives in darkness, and the longer men keep their struggles hidden, the deeper those struggles take root. Unmasking the truth, embracing authenticity. The first step to breaking free from the mask of masculinity is to acknowledge that it's okay not to be okay. Men need to hear that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Being open about your struggles doesn't make you less of a man, it makes you human. Sharing what's going on inside can be terrifying, especially when you've spent a lifetime hiding it, but it's also liberating. Imagine what would happen if men started showing up as their authentic selves, flaws and all. If they talked openly about their mental health, their fears, their insecurities. It would create a ripple effect, breaking down the stigma and allowing others to feel safe in doing the same. The more men unmask their true selves, the more we can normalize the conversation around mental health and make it okay to ask for help. The takeaway: ditch the mask and start the conversation. It's time to put down the masks, to stop pretending, and to start having real conversations about what's going on beneath the surface. Men don't have to be strong all the time. They don't have to hide their struggles or carry their burdens in silence. Depression is not a sign of weakness, and admitting that you're struggling is one of the bravest things you can do. If you've been hiding behind a mask, consider this your permission to take it off. To be honest with yourself and those around you. To start small, maybe by sharing with a friend, a loved one, or even a professional. You don't have to face this alone, and you don't have to keep pretending. By unmasking the truth, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping every man who's ever felt like they had to hide their pain. Chapter 4: Beyond the Blues. Physical symptoms of depression in men. When people think of depression, they often picture a person who's visibly sad, withdrawn, or emotionally down. But here's the kicker: depression isn't always just in your head. For many men, it manifests physically, sneaking into your life disguised as chronic pain, fatigue, or even digestive problems. It's like depression decided it wasn't getting enough attention emotionally, so it showed up in other places, like your back, your gut, or your energy levels. This chapter digs into the physical symptoms of depression in men, why they're often overlooked, and how to recognize them for what they really are: signs that something deeper is going on. When your body says what your mind won't. Imagine waking up every day feeling like you've been hit by a truck, even though you've done nothing more strenuous than watching late-night TV. Or maybe you've got a nagging pain in your back that just won't quit, no matter how many stretches, massages, or chiropractor visits you endure. You're constantly tired, struggling to focus, and your motivation is in the gutter. Sound familiar? These aren't just random annoyances, they're physical manifestations of depression. For many men, depression doesn't start with a tear-streaked face. It starts with a body that feels like it's betraying them. The physical symptoms of depression are real, and they can be just as debilitating as the emotional ones. But because men are often more comfortable talking about physical pain than emotional pain, these symptoms often go misdiagnosed or ignored, leaving the root cause unaddressed. Chronic pain: when depression hits below the belt and everywhere else. Depression doesn't just mess with your mood, it messes with your entire nervous system. Studies have shown that depression is closely linked to chronic pain conditions like back pain, joint pain, and muscle aches. It's like your body has taken on the weight of your emotions, and it's letting you know it's struggling, even if you're not ready to admit it. Think about it: when was the last time you felt genuinely relaxed? Not just, I'm sitting on the couch relaxed, but truly, deeply at ease? For many men with depression, that feeling is a distant memory. Instead, they're plagued by tension, tightness, and a constant sense of discomfort. It's as if depression has taken your body hostage, leaving you stuck in a cycle of pain that no amount of painkillers can fully relieve. Fatigue and sleep disturbances. The never-ending battle with exhaustion. Depression loves to mess with your sleep, often leaving you stuck in a frustrating cycle of exhaustion. One night, you're tossing and turning, unable to shut off the endless reel of thoughts running through your mind. The next, you're so tired you can barely keep your eyes open at your desk, no matter how many cups of coffee you've chugged. And when you do manage to get some sleep, it's often restless and unrefreshing, like your brain never really shuts down. Fatigue is one of the most common physical symptoms of depression, and it goes way beyond just feeling a little sleepy. It's an all-consuming weariness that makes even the simplest tasks feel impossible. Getting out of bed in the morning feels like climbing Mount Everest, and the thought of doing anything productive? Forget it. You're not just tired, you're completely drained, and no amount of sleep seems to fix it. Sleep disturbances can also manifest as insomnia or hypersomnia, excessive sleeping. It's as if your body is trying to shut down and recharge, but depression keeps interrupting the process. Over time, this constant battle with sleep can lead to a vicious cycle. Poor sleep worsens depression, and depression makes it even harder to sleep. Digestive issues. When depression hits you in the gut. You might think of your gut as just another part of your body, but it's actually deeply connected to your brain, so much so that it's often called the second brain. Ever noticed how stress or anxiety can make your stomach churn or cause a sudden urge to find the nearest bathroom? That's your gut-brain connection at work, and depression plays a major role in this interaction. Men with depression often experience digestive issues like nausea, bloating, constipation, or diarrhea. It's like your body is reacting to your emotions in the most inconvenient way possible. And because digestive problems are so common, they're often attributed to something else: bad food, a bug, or just nerves. But when these symptoms persist without a clear cause, it's worth considering that depression might be the culprit. Depression disrupts the balance of chemicals in your body, including those that regulate your gut. The result? A digestive system that's as out of whack as your emotions. And just like with other physical symptoms, treating the digestive issues alone won't get to the root of the problem. It's like trying to mop up a leak without fixing the broken pipe. Headaches and migraines, a pain in the brain. Headaches are another common but often overlooked symptom of depression, particularly in men. These aren't your average tension headaches. They can be severe, chronic, and sometimes even disabling. Migraines, in particular, have been linked to depression, creating a double whammy of pain that leaves you feeling completely wiped out. The relationship between headaches and depression is complex. Stress, anxiety, and negative thought patterns can all contribute to tension in the neck, shoulders, and head, which can then trigger headaches. At the same time, the constant physical pain can make depression worse, creating a feedback loop that feels impossible to break. For men who are more inclined to pop a couple of painkillers and push through, these headaches can go untreated for years, adding yet another layer to their silent suffering. But the truth is, these headaches are not just random, they're a sign that something deeper is at play. Loss of libido, when depression steals your drive. Another way depression shows up physically is by zapping your sex drive. And let's be real, no one wants to talk about it, but it's a common and often distressing symptom for many men. Depression can make you feel disconnected from your body and your partner, turning intimacy into just another task you can't seem to muster the energy for. It's not just about mood either. Depression messes with your hormones, including those that regulate sexual desire. The result? A lack of interest in something that used to be a natural and enjoyable part of your life. This can create feelings of guilt, frustration, and even shame, further deepening the cycle of depression. But it's important to remember, this isn't about willpower or desire. It's a physical symptom of a mental health condition that needs addressing. The misdiagnosis trap, when doctors miss the mark. One of the biggest challenges with the physical symptoms of depression is that they're often misdiagnosed. Men are more likely to visit the doctor for physical ailments than for emotional ones, so it's not uncommon for these symptoms to be treated in isolation. Chronic pain? You might get painkillers. Digestive issues? Here's some medication for that. But without addressing the underlying depression, these treatments are just temporary fixes. Doctors may not always make the connection between these physical complaints and depression, especially if the patient isn't talking about their mood. This can lead to years of ineffective treatment and a worsening mental health condition. It's crucial for both men and healthcare providers to understand that physical symptoms can be a major red flag for depression, not just unrelated aches and pains. Recognizing the signs, listening to what your body is telling you. The body has a way of speaking when the mind won't. If you're experiencing chronic pain, fatigue, digestive issues, headaches, or any other unexplained physical symptoms, it's worth taking a step back and considering whether depression might be at play. These symptoms aren't just inconvenient, they're messages that something deeper is going on. Depression is a full-body experience, and the physical symptoms are just as real and valid as the emotional ones. Recognizing them for what they are is the first step toward getting the right kind of help. It's not just about treating the body, it's about addressing the mind and acknowledging that it's okay to not feel okay. The takeaway: beyond the blues, it's all connected. Depression doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your entire body. And for many men, these physical symptoms are the most obvious, and sometimes the only clues that something is wrong. It's easy to ignore the aches, the fatigue, the digestive issues, and just chalk it up to getting older, stress, or a busy lifestyle. But ignoring these signs doesn't make them go away, it just prolongs the suffering. The good news? Recognizing these symptoms for what they are is the first step toward healing. By understanding that depression can manifest physically, you can start to connect the dots and seek the right kind of help. You don't have to keep living with pain, fatigue, or any other symptom that's holding you back. It's all connected, and by addressing the root cause, you can start to reclaim your health, both physical and mental. Chapter 5. Self-medication and substance abuse. The dangerous coping mechanisms. Imagine this. You've had a rough day, or maybe it's been a rough year, and you find yourself reaching for a drink. Maybe it's just one beer to take the edge off, but then one turns into 3, and before you know it, you're a few drinks deep, feeling temporarily numb to the day's stresses. It's a pattern that's all too familiar for many men. When life gets overwhelming, substances like alcohol, drugs, or even excessive use of painkillers become a quick, albeit dangerous, way to escape. This chapter explores how self-medication becomes a risky coping mechanism for men dealing with depression, and why it's so much more than just blowing off steam. Turning to the bottle, alcohol as a temporary fix. Alcohol is often the first go-to when men feel stressed, overwhelmed, or down. After all, it's legal, socially acceptable, and even encouraged in many social settings. It's not uncommon to hear phrases like, "I need a drink," tossed around after a long day. But for men struggling with depression, that occasional drink can quickly turn into a daily habit, and not the kind of habit that helps you feel better in the long run. Alcohol acts as a depressant, slowing down the brain's function and temporarily muting uncomfortable emotions. In the short term, it can feel like relief. The tension fades, the anxiety quiets, and the sadness dulls. But here's the catch. Alcohol doesn't just numb the pain. It also messes with your brain's natural chemistry, disrupting the balance of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine that regulate mood. What starts as a temporary fix often leads to deeper lows, creating a vicious cycle of drinking to feel better, only to end up feeling worse. For many men, drinking isn't just about the alcohol, it's about the ritual. It's the cold beer after work, the whiskey that helps take the edge off, the drink that keeps the awkward silences at bay. But as drinking becomes more frequent, it starts to take over. What was once a social activity turns into a solo mission, and the drink that once relaxed you now feels like the only way to get through the day. Drugs and depression, more than a recreational habit. While alcohol might be the most common self-medication tool, drugs, both prescription and illegal, often play a similar role. For some men, it's painkillers prescribed for an injury that morphs into an addiction. For others, it's recreational drugs like marijuana, cocaine, or opioids that offer a temporary escape from the weight of their emotions. The high feels like a way out, a momentary reprieve from a mind that won't stop spiraling. But drugs like alcohol come with a cost. They may provide a short-term escape, but they also wreak havoc on the body and mind, often leading to addiction, legal troubles, and worsening mental health. The more you use, the more you need, and before you know it, the substance that once felt like a solution becomes just another problem. Prescription drugs, particularly painkillers and anti-anxiety medications, are particularly insidious because they start under the guise of legitimate medical treatment. But as tolerance builds, doses increase, and what was once a way to manage pain or anxiety spirals into dependency. The drugs don't just numb the physical pain, they also dull the emotional pain, creating a double-edged sword that's difficult to put down. Numbing the pain, why men turn to substances? The question is, why do so many men turn to substances in the first place? The answer often lies in the societal pressures discussed in previous chapters. The expectation to be strong, to not show weakness, and to keep your emotions in check. When life feels overwhelming and traditional coping mechanisms like talking, seeking therapy, or asking for help feel off limits, substances become an easy escape hatch. They offer a way to momentarily turn off the mind, to feel something other than sadness or anxiety, or to simply cope with the daily grind. Men are often conditioned to believe that they should be able to handle their problems on their own. So when depression, anxiety, or stress creeps in, rather than reaching out, they turn inward, and often they turn to substances. Self-medication is a way of saying, "I can fix this myself," without having to admit that something deeper is going on. There's also the issue of stigma. Many men fear that admitting to depression or seeking help will make them appear weak, and the idea of talking to a professional about their feelings seems foreign, if not outright uncomfortable. Substances, on the other hand, don't judge. They don't ask questions and they don't require vulnerability. But they also don't solve the problem, they just temporarily cover it up. The downward spiral, when coping becomes addiction. What starts as a way to cope with tough emotions can quickly spiral into something far more dangerous. Addiction. Substance abuse is closely linked to depression, and each one exacerbates the other. The more you drink or use, the deeper your depression can become, which leads to even more drinking or using. It's a cycle that can be incredibly hard to break, especially when shame and denial are in the mix. Addiction doesn't just impact your mental health, it affects every aspect of your life. Relationships suffer, work performance declines, and physical health takes a nosedive. The substance that once provided relief becomes the very thing that traps you, making it nearly impossible to find your way back to feeling okay. For men, admitting that substance use has become a problem can feel like admitting defeat. It goes against the deeply ingrained belief that you should be able to control yourself and your life. But the truth is, addiction is not a moral failing. It's a complex mental health issue that requires support, understanding, and treatment. The hidden toll, how substances impact mental and physical health. It's not just about the immediate effects. Substances have a long-term impact on both mental and physical health. Chronic alcohol use can lead to liver damage, heart problems, and a weakened immune system. Drugs like opioids and stimulants can cause severe organ damage, cognitive decline, and increase the risk of overdose. Mentally, substance abuse deepens depression and anxiety. It disrupts sleep patterns, exacerbates mood swings, and increases feelings of hopelessness. Over time, the brain becomes dependent on the substance to function normally, making it even harder to quit. The coping mechanism that once felt like a lifeline slowly drags you down, often without you even realizing it until it's too late. Breaking free, the path to recovery. The road out of self-medication and substance abuse is challenging, but it's far from impossible. The first step is recognizing that there's a problem and understanding that substances are not the solution, they're the symptom of a deeper issue. Seeking help, whether it's through therapy, support groups, or medical intervention, is crucial. Recovery isn't about willpower, it's about finding healthier ways to cope with the emotions you've been trying to escape. Reaching out for help might feel daunting, especially if you've spent years hiding behind substances. But support is out there and you don't have to face it alone. Therapy can provide a safe space to explore the underlying causes of your depression and substance use, and support groups can connect you with others who understand what you're going through. It's about replacing harmful coping mechanisms with ones that genuinely support your mental and physical well-being. The takeaway: choosing a different path. Turning to substances to cope with depression is a common but dangerous path that only leads to more pain. While alcohol, drugs, and other substances might offer a quick escape, they ultimately keep you trapped in a cycle of dependency and worsening mental health. The good news? There's another way. By recognizing the role substances play in your life and seeking help, you can break free from the dangerous cycle of self-medication. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to numb your pain with substances. Real strength lies in facing your struggles head-on, seeking support, and learning healthier ways to cope. The path to recovery isn't easy, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, you deserve more than just temporary relief. You deserve to truly heal. Chapter 6. The Role of Relationships. How Depression Affects Families and Friends. Depression doesn't just live in your head, it lives in your relationships too. It's that uninvited guest at the dinner table, the silent elephant in the room that everyone feels but no one wants to address. When a man is struggling with depression, it's not just his battle. It becomes a shared struggle that ripples through his family, friendships, and even professional life. This chapter delves into the complex ways depression impacts relationships, how those closest to you can unintentionally become collateral damage, and how to navigate these challenges without losing the people who matter most. The invisible wall: how depression creates distance. Depression has a way of building walls, high, thick, impenetrable walls that keep loved ones out and keep you trapped inside your own mind. You might find yourself withdrawing from the people you care about, not because you want to, but because the effort of engaging feels like too much. Simple conversations become exhausting, laughter feels forced, and social interactions start to feel more like obligations than enjoyment. It's not that you don't care, it's that depression has robbed you of the energy to show it. This emotional distance can be confusing for those on the outside. Friends and family may notice you pulling away, canceling plans, or just not being yourself, but they often don't know why. They might take it personally, thinking you're disinterested or annoyed, when in reality, you're just struggling to keep your head above water. This can create a feedback loop of misunderstanding and resentment, deepening the isolation that depression thrives on. The truth is, when you're depressed, it's hard to show up for others in the way you want to. You're so busy fighting your own battles that maintaining connections feels secondary, even though deep down, you know you need those connections more than ever. The challenge is finding ways to let those walls down, even just a little, so the people who care about you can help support you through the darkness. Silent suffering: the impact on partners and spouses. One of the most profound impacts of depression is on intimate relationships. Partners and spouses often feel the weight of your struggles, even when you try your best to keep it hidden. Depression can turn once happy relationships into a minefield of miscommunications, unmet needs, and emotional distance. The person they fell in love with seems lost, replaced by someone who is physically present but emotionally absent. It's not uncommon for partners to feel like they're walking on eggshells, unsure of how to help or afraid of saying the wrong thing. They might try to cheer you up, encourage you to get out of the house, or suggest solutions, but depression often doesn't respond to logic or pep talks. This can lead to frustration on both sides. You feel misunderstood and they feel helpless. The emotional toll on partners can be significant. They may take on additional responsibilities, from managing the household to caring for children, and their own needs often go unmet. The strain of supporting someone with depression can lead to feelings of burnout, resentment, and even guilt, as they struggle to reconcile their love for you with the reality of your mental health challenges. But it's important to remember that depression doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. Open communication, patience, and sometimes professional help, like couples therapy, can provide a path forward. Partners can learn how to support without feeling overwhelmed, and you can find ways to let them in without feeling like a burden. The parenting paradox: when dad's not okay. Fatherhood comes with its own set of pressures, and when depression enters the picture, it can feel like you're failing at the most important job in the world. Men often feel an intense responsibility to be the strong, steady figure for their children, but depression can make it hard to be present, both physically and emotionally. The guilt of not being the dad you think you should be can be crushing, creating a cycle of shame that feeds the depression. Kids are perceptive. They notice when something's off, even if they don't have the words to describe it. They might sense the tension, see the forced smiles, or feel the absence of your usual playfulness. This can be confusing and even distressing for them, leading to their own emotional responses, like acting out or withdrawing. Navigating depression as a parent means striking a delicate balance between managing your mental health and being there for your kids. It's okay to have off days, and it's okay to be honest with your children in an age-appropriate way about what you're going through. By modeling vulnerability and resilience, you're not just managing your own depression, you're teaching your kids important lessons about emotions, empathy, and the power of seeking help. Friendships on the fray: how depression strains social bonds. Friendships often take a back seat when depression is at the wheel. Texts go unanswered, calls get ignored, and invitations start to feel like obligations rather than opportunities to connect. The irony is that while depression makes you want to isolate, it's precisely those social connections that could help lift you out of the fog. But reaching out feels impossible when just getting through the day is a monumental task. Friends might not understand what's happening, especially if you've always been the dependable one, the funny one, or the one who's always up for a good time. When that changes, they may feel hurt, confused, or even rejected. It's not uncommon for friendships to drift apart during periods of depression, not because anyone stopped caring, but because depression slowly erodes the bonds that once felt unbreakable. But here's the good news: true friends are often more understanding than you might think. They might not have the perfect words or know exactly how to help, but they care. Sometimes, a simple, honest conversation can be the first step in rebuilding those connections. Letting your friends know what you're going through opens the door to support, whether it's through a listening ear, a shared meal, or just knowing that someone's in your corner, even on your darkest days. Workplace woes: depression in the professional sphere. Depression doesn't clock out when you go to work. It shows up in missed deadlines, unexplained absences, and a general lack of motivation that's hard to hide. For many men, work is a core part of their identity, so when depression starts to impact job performance, it can feel like a personal failing. You're not just struggling at work, you're struggling with who you are. Colleagues might notice changes. Maybe you're quieter in meetings, less engaged, or making mistakes that are out of character. But the stigma around mental health in the workplace often keeps men silent. The fear of being judged, losing respect, or even risking job security makes it easier to suffer in silence than to speak up. However, more workplaces are beginning to recognize the importance of mental health, and opening up about your struggles can sometimes lead to understanding and support rather than judgment. Whether it's talking to HR, a trusted colleague, or even utilizing employee assistance programs, there are often resources available that can help you navigate your professional life while managing your mental health. Bridging the gap: how to let loved ones in. The biggest challenge of depression is the sense of isolation it creates, but the antidote lies in connection. Letting people in doesn't mean spilling your guts to everyone you know. It can start small. A simple, honest conversation with a partner, a friend, or even a family member can be the first step in breaking down the walls that depression builds. You don't have to have all the answers or know exactly what you need from others. Sometimes just saying, "I'm struggling," is enough. The people who care about you don't need you to be perfect. They just want to be there for you, even if it's just to listen or share a moment of understanding. And if you're on the other side, if you're the friend, partner, or family member of someone with depression, know that your support matters, even when it feels like you're not making a difference. Sometimes just showing up, being patient, and offering a non-judgmental presence is the most powerful thing you can do. The takeaway: connection as a lifeline. Depression can feel like the ultimate disconnector, severing the ties that once brought joy, comfort, and support. But relationships are also the key to finding your way back. Even when it feels impossible, reaching out, opening up, and letting people in can make all the difference. You don't have to face this alone, and you don't have to have it all figured out. Letting the people who care about you be a part of your journey is not a burden, it's a lifeline. At its core, depression is a thief. It steals your energy, your joy, and your connection to others. But the good news is that these things aren't gone forever. By taking small steps to nurture your relationships, you can begin to reclaim what depression has taken. And while it might not be easy, it's worth it, because on the other side of those walls is a world of support, love, and understanding waiting for you. Chapter 7, Breaking the Silence, Encouraging Men to Speak Up. For many men, talking about feelings ranks right up there with reading the manual or asking for directions, things that are technically possible but rarely done voluntarily. But when it comes to mental health, silence is not golden, it's dangerous. Depression thrives in the quiet, growing stronger every time you swallow your struggles instead of voicing them. This chapter is about breaking that silence, challenging the stigma around men's mental health, and finding the courage to speak up, whether it's to a friend, a family member, or a professional. The strong silent type myth, why men stay quiet. We've all seen the movies, the rugged hero who handles everything on his own, rarely showing emotion beyond a steely glare. He's tough, resilient, and never lets his guard down. It's a compelling image, but in real life this strong silent type myth does more harm than good. Men are often raised with the belief that they should be self-reliant, emotionally contained, and that expressing vulnerability is a sign of weakness. But this narrative not only limits men, it isolates them. The stigma around men's mental health is deeply ingrained. Admitting to feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or depressed feels like breaking some unspoken rule of masculinity. It's as if by acknowledging your struggles, you're somehow failing at being a man. This cultural conditioning leads to a damaging pattern of silence, where men would rather suffer quietly than risk being seen as weak. The fear of judgment, embarrassment, or simply not knowing how to put emotions into words keeps men stuck in a cycle of silence. But this silence doesn't just affect mental health, it's a ticking time bomb. The longer feelings are suppressed, the more they fester, often leading to substance abuse, reckless behavior, or even suicidal thoughts. The cost of staying quiet is simply too high. The "I'm fine" lie, why it's okay not to be okay. How many times have you answered, "I'm fine," when you were anything but? It's the go-to response, a social reflex that's designed to shut down further questioning. But behind every "I'm fine" is usually a whole lot of "not fine." It's not just a throwaway phrase, it's a defense mechanism, a way to avoid vulnerability and keep others at a distance. Admitting that you're not okay feels like stepping into unknown territory, and it can be terrifying. There's a fear that once you start talking you won't be able to stop, or that by opening up, you'll somehow lose control. But here's the thing, saying, "I'm struggling," doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You don't have to have a perfectly packaged explanation for why you feel the way you do. Sometimes just acknowledging that you're not okay is the most honest and courageous step you can take. The power of sharing, why talking makes a difference. Talking about your feelings won't magically solve everything, but it's an important first step in lightening the emotional load. Sharing your struggles, whether it's with a friend, partner, or therapist, helps to externalize the problem. It's no longer just in your head, swirling around and gaining weight with every passing day. By verbalizing what you're going through, you create space between yourself and your depression, allowing you to see it from a different perspective. Talking also helps break down the shame that often accompanies mental health struggles. When you share, you're letting someone else into your experience, and in doing so, you begin to see that you're not alone. Many men are surprised to find that when they open up, they're met with empathy, understanding, and often a "me too." You'd be amazed at how many people around you are dealing with their own battles, even if they seem perfectly fine on the outside. Conversation is connection, and connection is one of the most powerful antidotes to depression. It's not about dumping all your problems on someone else, it's about finding a safe space where you can be real without the masks or the bravado. Sometimes just being heard is enough to make a world of difference. How to start the conversation, finding your words. Opening up about mental health can feel like trying to speak a foreign language. You know what you want to say, but the words just don't come out. The key is to start small. You don't have to dive into the deep end with every feeling and thought you've ever had. A simple, honest statement is enough to break the ice. Start with something manageable like, "I've been feeling off lately," or "I'm having a rough time." You don't need to have all the answers or even know exactly what you're feeling. Just getting the conversation started is a victory in itself. It's okay if you stumble, if you're not eloquent, or if you struggle to put your feelings into words. The important part is that you're trying, and that effort alone is a powerful step toward healing. If talking face-to-face feels too daunting, consider writing your thoughts down first. Journaling can be a useful tool to help clarify your feelings before you share them with someone else. Sometimes, seeing your thoughts on paper helps make them feel more manageable, less chaotic. And when you're ready, you can use those written words as a guide to help you start the conversation. Choosing your confidants. Who should you talk to? Not everyone needs to know your deepest struggles, and that's okay. It's about finding the right people who can provide the support you need. This might be a trusted friend, a family member, a partner, or even a professional like a therapist or counselor. The goal is to find someone who will listen without judgment, offer support, and keep your confidence. It's also important to remember that not everyone will have the perfect response, and that's not a reflection of you or your worth. People might not always know what to say, and they might fumble in their attempts to help. But more often than not, they care deeply and want to be there for you, even if they don't have all the answers. It's not about finding the perfect listener, it's about finding someone who's willing to try. The role of therapy, professional help as a safe space. For many men, therapy feels like a last resort, something you turn to only when things have reached a breaking point. But therapy isn't just for crises, it's a proactive way to take care of your mental health. A therapist provides a non-judgmental space where you can talk openly about your struggles, learn coping strategies, and gain insights into patterns of thought and behavior that might be contributing to your depression. The idea of talking to a stranger about your innermost thoughts can feel intimidating, but therapists are trained to help you navigate these conversations at your own pace. They won't force you to talk about anything you're not ready to discuss, and they won't judge you for how you feel. It's about creating a space where you can unpack the weight you've been carrying and start to find a way forward. Cultural shifts, changing the conversation around men's mental health. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to normalizing conversations about men's mental health. Society is slowly starting to shift its narrative, recognizing that vulnerability is not the enemy of strength but a vital part of it. From high-profile athletes and celebrities sharing their struggles to grassroots mental health movements, the message is getting louder. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about it. By speaking up, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping to change the culture around men's mental health. Every time you share your story, you're chipping away at the stigma, making it a little easier for the next guy to do the same. It's a ripple effect that has the power to transform how we view and treat mental health struggles. The takeaway: the courage to speak up. Breaking the silence isn't easy, but it's one of the most courageous things you can do. Depression wants you to stay quiet, to keep your struggles hidden away in the dark. But every time you speak up, you're taking power back from it. You're creating a path toward healing, not just for yourself, but for every man who's ever felt like he had to suffer in silence. So start the conversation. Say something even if it's imperfect. Let someone in even if it feels vulnerable. You don't have to have all the answers or be able to fix everything overnight. Just by speaking up, you're already doing something incredibly brave. And remember, you're not alone. There's a whole community of people who are ready to listen, support, and help you find your way through. Chapter 8. Seeking help. Therapy, medication, and alternative treatments for men. Admitting that you need help is one of the hardest steps in battling depression, especially when society has often told men to tough it out, or just get over it. But depression isn't something you can muscle through or ignore until it goes away. It's a serious condition that requires real support and effective treatment. Fortunately, there are many paths to feeling better, from therapy and medication to alternative treatments that can complement traditional approaches. This chapter explores the various options available, tailored specifically to men, and offers practical advice on how to find the help that's right for you. Therapy, breaking the stereotypes and finding the right fit. When you hear the word therapy, it might conjure up images of lying on a couch while someone scribbles notes about your childhood. But modern therapy is far from the cliché, and it's certainly not just for those in crisis. Therapy is a powerful tool for anyone struggling with mental health, providing a safe, confidential space where you can work through your thoughts, emotions, and challenges with a trained professional. For many men, the idea of talking about feelings with a stranger feels awkward or intimidating, especially if you're not used to expressing emotions. But therapy doesn't have to be a daunting deep dive into your psyche. It's about meeting you where you are. Some sessions might focus on practical strategies for managing your day-to-day life, while others might explore deeper issues when you're ready. The key is finding a therapist you feel comfortable with, someone who understands the unique challenges men face. There are different types of therapy, each with its own approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, for example, is one of the most common methods used to treat depression. It focuses on identifying and changing negative thought patterns that contribute to your mental health struggles. CBT is often structured and goal-oriented, making it a great fit for men who prefer a more practical approach. Other types of therapy, such as solution-focused brief therapy, SFBT, focus on finding practical solutions rather than delving into the past. Group therapy offers the chance to connect with others facing similar struggles, providing a sense of community and shared understanding. The options are varied, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Finding the right type of therapy is about exploring what works best for you. Medication, a tool not a crutch. The thought of taking medication for mental health can be daunting. There's a fear of dependence, side effects, or even just the stigma of needing a pill to feel okay. But antidepressants and other medications are not about fixing you, they're about restoring balance to a system that's out of sync. Depression often involves a chemical imbalance in the brain, affecting neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which regulate mood, energy, and motivation. Medication can help rebalance these chemicals, providing relief from symptoms so you can function better in your daily life. There are several types of antidepressants, including selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, SNRIs, and tricyclic antidepressants, TCAs, among others. The right medication can take time to find, and what works for one person might not work for another. It's a process of trial and adjustment, often involving conversations with your doctor about how you're feeling and what side effects you're experiencing. It's important to remember that medication is not a cure-all, and it's most effective when combined with other forms of treatment, like therapy. It's a tool that can help take the edge off your symptoms, making it easier to engage with therapy, make lifestyle changes, and start to rebuild your mental health. There's no shame in needing medication. It's no different from taking insulin for diabetes or using an inhaler for asthma. It's about giving your brain the support it needs to function properly. Alternative treatments, beyond the couch and the pill. While therapy and medication are often the frontline treatments for depression, there are also a variety of alternative approaches that can complement traditional methods. These treatments aren't about replacing therapy or medication but rather adding additional layers of support to your mental health toolkit. Exercise, moving your body, lifting your mood. You've probably heard it a million times, but it's true. Exercise is a powerful mood booster. Physical activity releases endorphins, often referred to as feel-good hormones, which can help combat the effects of depression. It doesn't have to be a grueling gym session. Even a 30-minute walk can make a significant difference in how you feel. The key is to find something you enjoy, whether it's running, lifting weights, cycling, or just playing a pickup game of basketball with friends. Moving your body isn't just good for your physical health. It's a natural way to lift your mood and break the cycle of inertia that depression creates. Mindfulness and meditation, tuning into the present. Mindfulness and meditation are about focusing on the present moment, helping you become more aware of your thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations without judgment. For men who feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of negative thoughts, mindfulness offers a way to step back and observe those thoughts without getting caught up in them. Practices like deep breathing, guided meditation, or even just taking a few minutes to sit quietly can reduce anxiety, improve focus, and help you feel more grounded. Diet and nutrition, feeding your mental health. What you eat affects how you feel, both physically and mentally. Diets high in processed foods, sugars, and unhealthy fats can exacerbate symptoms of depression, while a balanced diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins can improve mood and energy levels. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fish like salmon, have been shown to support brain health and reduce symptoms of depression. Supplements like vitamin D and B-complex vitamins can also play a role in supporting mental health, especially if deficiencies are present. Making small, manageable changes to your diet, like incorporating more fresh foods or cutting back on alcohol, can help support your overall mental well-being. It's not about perfection or following a strict regimen. It's about recognizing the connection between what you put into your body and how you feel. Nature therapy, the healing power of the outdoors. There's a reason why spending time in nature feels so rejuvenating. Whether it's hiking in the woods, sitting by the ocean, or simply spending time in a park, nature has a calming effect on the mind. Exposure to natural light, fresh air, and the soothing sounds of nature can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve mood. Even just a short walk outside can help reset your mind and provide a break from the constant noise of daily life. Support groups, connecting with others who get it. There's something incredibly powerful about talking to people who truly understand what you're going through. Support groups, whether in person or online, offer a safe space to share your experiences, hear others' stories, and feel less alone in your struggles. Men often find comfort in knowing that they're not the only ones facing these challenges, and that realization can be a crucial step in the healing process. Support groups vary widely, from general depression groups to those focused on specific issues like substance abuse, grief, or relationship problems. Some are led by mental health professionals, while others are peer-led, offering a more informal setting. The goal is to connect, share, and support each other without judgment. Taking the first step, how to get started. The hardest part of seeking help is often taking that first step. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the options, unsure of where to start or who to turn to. But remember, you don't have to figure it all out at once. Start small. Reach out to your doctor, look up therapists in your area, or join an online support group to dip your toes in the water. If therapy feels intimidating, consider starting with a low-commitment option like online counseling or a mental health app. These platforms offer the flexibility to connect with professionals from the comfort of your home, making it easier to start the process on your terms. And if you're not ready for medication, that's okay too. There's no one right way to treat depression. It's about finding what works for you one step at a time. The takeaway: embrace your options, embrace your healing. Seeking help isn't a sign of failure, it's a powerful act of self-care. There's no shame in needing support, whether it's through therapy, medication, or alternative treatments. The important thing is to take that step, however small, toward prioritizing your mental health. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are countless resources, professionals, and support systems ready to help you navigate your way out of depression. Depression doesn't define you, and it doesn't have to control your life. By exploring your treatment options and finding the right mix that works for you, you can reclaim your sense of self, rebuild your strength, and start to feel like you again. There's no quick fix, but there's also no limit to the possibilities of healing when you take the brave step of seeking help. Chapter 9: Building Emotional Resilience. Practical Steps for Men to Combat Depression. Depression has a way of stripping away your sense of control. It sneaks in, shifts your thoughts, and leaves you feeling powerless against its grip. But the truth is, you're not as powerless as you might think. While depression can be overwhelming, building emotional resilience, your mental muscle, so to speak, can help you navigate the storm and come out stronger on the other side. This chapter dives deep into practical, actionable steps men can take to build emotional resilience, develop healthy coping strategies, and reclaim their mental well-being. What is emotional resilience? The armor you didn't know you had. Emotional resilience isn't about never feeling down or never struggling. It's about how you bounce back when life knocks you down. Think of it as your internal armor, not the kind that keeps everything out, but the kind that helps you absorb hits and keep moving forward. Resilience doesn't make you immune to depression, but it equips you with the tools to manage it more effectively, reduce its impact, and recover faster when setbacks occur. Resilience is built, not born. It's developed through experience, practice, and a willingness to face your challenges head-on. The good news is that it's never too late to start strengthening your resilience, no matter how long you've been struggling. By adopting specific strategies, you can enhance your ability to cope with stress, manage negative emotions, and stay grounded even in the face of depression. 1. Reframe your mindset, shifting from defeat to growth. One of the most powerful tools for building resilience is changing the way you think about challenges. Depression often clouds your mind with thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," "this is never going to get better," or "why bother trying?" These negative thought patterns are like quicksand, they pull you deeper the more you fight against them. Reframing, or cognitive restructuring, is about challenging these thoughts and shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, start viewing them as opportunities for growth. This isn't just positive thinking, it's about being realistic and finding the lessons in tough situations. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed at work, rather than thinking, "I'm terrible at my job," try reframing it as, "This is a chance for me to learn better time management or ask for the support I need." It's a subtle shift, but it can transform how you experience challenges and build a more resilient mindset. Practical tip: when a negative thought pops up, ask yourself, "Is this thought true? What evidence do I have for and against this thought? How would I respond if a friend said this about themselves?" These questions help break the automatic cycle of negative thinking and open the door to more balanced, constructive thoughts. 2. Build a routine, creating stability in the chaos. Depression thrives in chaos, feeding off the unpredictability and disorganization it often brings. One of the most effective ways to combat this is by establishing a daily routine. It doesn't have to be rigid or overly detailed, just a basic structure that provides some predictability to your day. Routines help anchor you, creating a sense of normalcy even when everything else feels out of control. Start with the basics. Set a regular wake-up time, plan your meals, and carve out time for exercise, work, relaxation, and sleep. The goal isn't to micromanage every minute but to create a framework that keeps you grounded. For example, knowing that you'll go for a walk every morning or have dinner at 7 p.m. provides small but significant moments of stability. These routines act as touchpoints throughout your day, reminding you that even in the midst of depression, you still have control over certain aspects of your life. Practical tip: write down a simple daily schedule and stick it somewhere visible. Start small and gradually add elements as you get comfortable. The key is consistency, not perfection. If your routine gets disrupted, don't stress, just get back on track when you can. 3. Develop healthy coping strategies, ditching destructive habits. When depression hits, it's tempting to reach for quick fixes: alcohol, junk food, excessive screen time, or other behaviors that provide temporary relief but ultimately worsen your mood. Building resilience means identifying these destructive coping mechanisms and replacing them with healthier alternatives. This isn't about depriving yourself. It's about finding sustainable ways to manage stress and emotional pain. Healthy coping strategies can include physical activity, hobbies, creative outlets, or even simple practices like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation. The idea is to find activities that help you decompress without adding to your problems. For example, if you usually unwind with a few beers, try substituting with a short workout or a walk outside. If you tend to scroll endlessly through social media, consider setting a time limit and replacing that time with reading or a hands-on project. Practical tip: make a list of your current coping mechanisms, both positive and negative. For each negative one, brainstorm an alternative that serves the same purpose: relaxation, distraction, comfort, but in a healthier way. Keep this list handy as a go-to guide when you're feeling overwhelmed. 4. Strengthen your support network. Lean on your tribe. Resilience isn't a solo mission. It's something we build through connection with others. Whether it's friends, family, a support group, or even coworkers, having people you can lean on makes a massive difference in how you handle tough times. Depression often tries to convince you that you're alone, that no one understands, or that you're a burden. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Strengthening your support network doesn't mean you have to share every detail of your struggles with everyone you know. It's about identifying those key people you trust and allowing them to be there for you. Sometimes, just knowing that someone has your back can bolster your resilience against depression. It's okay to ask for help, to lean on others, and to let your guard down. Practical tip: reach out to a few trusted people and let them know what you're going through. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation, just a check-in to say, "I've been struggling lately and I appreciate having you in my corner." You might be surprised at how much support is waiting for you once you open that door. 5. Set boundaries, protecting your mental space. Resilience isn't just about what you do, it's also about what you don't do. Setting boundaries is crucial to protecting your mental health, especially when depression leaves you feeling overwhelmed and stretched thin. Boundaries can be physical, like saying no to plans when you need rest, or emotional, like distancing yourself from people who drain your energy. Learning to say no, to prioritize your needs, and to set limits with others is not selfish, it's necessary. Resilience means knowing your limits and honoring them, even when it feels uncomfortable. You can't pour from an empty cup, and by setting boundaries, you're ensuring that you have the space to recharge and take care of yourself. Practical tip: identify one area of your life where your boundaries need work, whether it's at home, at work, or in social situations. Start small by setting a clear, manageable boundary, like turning off work emails after 6 p.m. or declining an event that feels too overwhelming. 6. Physical health and resilience, the mind-body connection. Your body and mind are deeply connected, and taking care of your physical health can have a significant impact on your emotional resilience. Exercise, diet, sleep, and hydration all play crucial roles in how you feel. Regular physical activity releases endorphins, reduces stress hormones, and improves overall mood, making it one of the best natural antidepressants out there. Getting enough sleep is equally important. Poor sleep can exacerbate depression, making it harder to cope with daily challenges. Aim for consistency in your sleep schedule and create a nighttime routine that helps you wind down. Small changes like reducing caffeine intake, cutting back on screen time before bed, or creating a calming environment can drastically improve the quality of your rest. Practical tip: commit to one physical health goal this week, whether it's getting an extra 30 minutes of sleep, drinking more water, or adding a 20-minute walk to your daily routine. Small, consistent changes add up over time, boosting your overall resilience. 7. Embrace mindfulness, staying present in the midst of struggle. Mindfulness isn't just about meditation, it's about being fully present in your life, even when things are tough. Depression often pulls you into the past, replaying regrets, or drags you into the future, imagining the worst-case scenarios. Mindfulness helps anchor you in the here and now, allowing you to experience your thoughts and emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Practicing mindfulness can be as simple as paying attention to your breath, savoring a meal without distractions, or taking a moment to feel the ground beneath your feet. It's about noticing without judgment what's happening inside and around you. Mindfulness helps break the autopilot mode that depression often creates, bringing you back to the present moment where you can make conscious choices. Practical tip: try a 5-minute mindfulness exercise each day. It could be a breathing exercise, a body scan, or simply sitting quietly and noticing the sounds around you. The goal isn't to clear your mind, but to observe it without getting lost in it. 8. Find purpose and meaning, the ultimate resilience builder. One of the most powerful antidotes to depression is a sense of purpose. When life feels aimless or without meaning, it's easy for depression to take hold. Finding purpose doesn't mean you need to have all the answers or a grand life mission. It's about identifying the things that give your life value, however small they might seem. Purpose can be found in your relationships, your work, your hobbies, or even in the simple act of helping others. Volunteering, engaging in a passion project, or setting small goals can reignite a sense of direction and remind you that your life has significance. Purpose gives you something to hold on to when depression tries to pull you under. Practical tip: reflect on what gives your life meaning. It might be your family, a creative pursuit, your faith, or a cause you care about. Set a small, actionable goal that aligns with your values, like dedicating time each week to a hobby or reaching out to help someone in need. The takeaway: building your resilience one step at a time. Building emotional resilience is a journey, not a destination. It's about creating a toolkit of strategies that help you navigate the ups and downs of depression with greater strength and confidence. Resilience doesn't mean you won't face challenges. It means you'll be better equipped to handle them when they come. Every small step you take, from reframing your mindset to setting boundaries, is a building block in your resilience. It's okay to start small, to stumble, and to take things one day at a time. The important thing is that you're actively investing in your mental well-being and choosing to fight back against depression. Remember, resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, dusting yourself off, and continuing forward no matter how many times you're knocked down. You have the strength within you to build a life where depression doesn't get the final say. And with every step you take, you're reclaiming your power and rewriting your story on your terms. Chapter 10. A new narrative for men's mental health, changing how we talk, think, and act. As we near the end of this journey, it's clear that the conversation around men's mental health needs a radical transformation. The old narratives of stoicism, silence, and self-reliance are outdated, and, frankly, dangerous. Men have been conditioned for far too long to suppress their emotions, tough it out, and avoid seeking help. But it's time to change the script, not just for the men struggling now, but for future generations who deserve a healthier way to approach mental health. This final chapter is about redefining what it means to be a man in today's world, embracing vulnerability as strength, and creating a culture that encourages men to speak up, seek help, and thrive. The cost of the old narrative: why man up needs to die. Man up. Toughen up. Don't cry. These are the phrases boys hear from a young age, shaping their understanding of what it means to be a man. The idea that real men don't show weakness is so deeply ingrained that it feels like an unbreakable rule. But this outdated narrative has come at a steep price. Men are far less likely to seek help for mental health issues, and when they do, it's often only after they've reached a breaking point. The statistics are sobering. Men are more likely to die by suicide, more likely to engage in risky behaviors, and less likely to seek therapy than women. This isn't because men don't struggle, it's because they've been taught to hide it. The pressure to conform to these unrealistic standards doesn't just impact individual lives, it reverberates through families, communities, and society at large. The cost of staying silent is simply too high. It's time to challenge these old messages and create a new narrative, one that acknowledges that men are human beings with a full range of emotions, just like anyone else. Strength isn't about how much you can endure in silence. It's about having the courage to be real, to speak up, and to prioritize your mental health. The power of vulnerability, redefining strength in modern manhood. One of the biggest shifts we need is the understanding that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a fundamental part of being human. Men often shy away from being vulnerable, fearing it will make them appear less capable or strong. But in reality, allowing yourself to be vulnerable is one of the bravest things you can do. It takes guts to admit when you're struggling, to ask for help, or to show your true emotions, especially in a world that's conditioned you to hide them. Brené Brown, a researcher and author who has studied vulnerability extensively, describes it as the birthplace of courage, creativity, and connection. For men, embracing vulnerability means giving yourself permission to feel without judgment. It's recognizing that showing up as your authentic self, flaws, fears, and all, is the most powerful way to live. Vulnerability connects us to others, fosters deeper relationships, and ultimately helps us heal. Practical tip: start small by practicing vulnerability in safe spaces. Share something personal with a close friend, express how you're really feeling instead of brushing it off, or open up about a challenge you're facing. Each time you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you're dismantling the walls that keep you isolated. Rethinking masculinity: it's okay to redefine your own rules. Masculinity has long been associated with traits like toughness, dominance, and emotional restraint. But masculinity doesn't have to be a rigid, one-size-fits-all box. It's okay to redefine what being a man means to you, free from societal expectations. You can be strong and sensitive, independent yet deeply connected to others, ambitious but also nurturing. Masculinity is not a fixed identity, it's fluid and personal. It's about creating space for all aspects of yourself, without feeling the need to conform to outdated stereotypes. When you redefine masculinity on your own terms, you open the door to a more fulfilling and authentic life. You're no longer bound by the pressures of having to fit a specific mold, and you're free to express yourself in ways that feel true to who you are. Practical tip: reflect on what being a man means to you. Write down the traits you value most in yourself and in others, and compare them to traditional definitions of masculinity. Identify the aspects that resonate with you and those that don't, and give yourself permission to embrace the parts that truly align with your authentic self. Supporting each other. Building a community of honest conversation. Changing the narrative around men's mental health isn't something that can be done alone. It requires a collective effort. Men need communities where they can share their experiences without fear of judgment, where they can hear others' stories and realize they're not alone. The simple act of talking openly about mental health can be transformative, both for those who speak and those who listen. Support doesn't have to come in the form of formal therapy or structured groups, though those are great options. It can be as simple as a regular catch-up with a friend where the conversation goes beyond surface-level topics. It's about creating spaces, whether in person or online, where men feel safe to be themselves and to discuss what's really going on. Social media, podcasts, and blogs are increasingly becoming platforms where men share their mental health journeys, breaking down stigma in the process. By sharing your story or simply engaging with others who are doing the same, you're contributing to a growing movement that's changing the conversation around men's mental health. Practical tip: consider joining or creating a small support group, whether it's with friends, colleagues, or an existing community. Commit to regular check-ins where everyone has the opportunity to share honestly about how they're doing. The goal isn't to solve each other's problems but to listen, support, and foster an environment of openness. The role of role models. Visibility matters. Seeing others, especially public figures, celebrities, or even peers, open up about their struggles can be incredibly validating. When men in the spotlight talk about their mental health challenges, it helps normalize the conversation and break down the stigma that still surrounds it. Athletes, actors, musicians, and influencers who share their experiences with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues play a critical role in shifting societal attitudes. Role models remind us that no one is immune to mental health struggles, no matter how successful or seemingly put together they appear. They also show that seeking help is not a sign of weakness but a step toward strength. The more we amplify these voices, the more we empower all men to speak openly about their own experiences. Practical tip: follow and support public figures who advocate for mental health awareness. Share their stories, engage with their content, and use their visibility as a catalyst for your own conversations. Remember, every story shared helps break the stigma a little bit more. Educating the next generation. Changing the conversation for boys. If we want to see a world where men's mental health is taken seriously, we need to start by changing how we talk to the next generation. Boys need to hear that it's okay to cry, to feel scared, to ask for help, and to be open about their emotions. Teaching emotional intelligence from a young age equips boys with the tools they need to navigate life's ups and downs without feeling like they have to suppress their feelings. Parents, teachers, coaches, and mentors play a pivotal role in shaping how boys perceive mental health. By modeling vulnerability, encouraging open dialogue, and challenging outdated stereotypes, we can raise a generation of men who see mental health as just as important as physical health. It's about creating a culture where emotions are seen not as weaknesses, but as integral parts of being human. Practical tip: if you have young boys in your life, whether they're your children, students, or men's, Make a conscious effort to talk about emotions in a healthy way. Ask how they're feeling, validate their experiences, and encourage them to express themselves without shame or judgment. Advocating for mental health in the workplace. The workplace is often where men spend the majority of their time, yet it's one of the last places where mental health is openly discussed. Companies that prioritize mental health create healthier, more productive environments where employees feel supported and valued. This doesn't just mean offering mental health days or employee assistance programs, though those are important. It's about fostering a culture where mental health is openly discussed without stigma. Men in particular need to know that it's okay to ask for help at work, to set boundaries, and to take care of their mental well-being without fearing professional repercussions. When workplaces actively support mental health initiatives, it sends a powerful message: your well-being matters. Practical tip: if you're in a position to advocate for mental health at work, start the conversation. Suggest workshops, bring in speakers, or create informal groups where employees can talk about mental health. Even small steps can have a big impact on workplace culture. The takeaway: be the change you want to see. The fight to change the narrative around men's mental health isn't just about talking, it's about action. It's about each of us as individuals and as a community, choosing to break the silence, challenge outdated norms, and support each other in our mental health journeys. It's about redefining what it means to be a man in a way that prioritizes well-being over appearances, connection over stoicism, and authenticity over perfection. Every time you speak up, support someone else, or simply take care of your own mental health, you're contributing to a larger movement that's reshaping how we think about men's mental health. Conclusion: a new path forward, embracing change and healing. As we wrap up this journey through understanding depression in men, it's clear that the road to mental health isn't a straight line. It's a winding path filled with ups and downs, triumphs and setbacks, but most importantly, it's a path worth walking. For too long, men have been burdened with unrealistic expectations, silenced by stigma, and trapped in cycles of silent suffering. But this doesn't have to be the way forward. The narrative is changing, and with it, the opportunity for every man to embrace a new, healthier approach to mental health. Looking back, understanding the journey we've taken. Throughout this book, we've delved deep into the unique ways depression affects men. We've explored how it hides behind anger, risk-taking, and physical symptoms, often masquerading as something else entirely. We've uncovered the damaging impact of societal pressures and the toxic myths of masculinity that tell men they must be strong, stoic, and self-reliant at all costs. We've also looked at how depression strains relationships, disrupts careers, and creates a sense of isolation that feels impossible to break. But we've also highlighted the power of resilience, the importance of connection, and the many pathways to healing. From therapy and medication to alternative treatments like exercise and mindfulness, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, but there are countless options available. The key is recognizing that seeking help is not a sign of weakness but a courageous step toward reclaiming your life. Embracing change, taking action in your own life. If there's one takeaway from this book, it's this: you are not alone and you are not powerless. Depression might make you feel trapped, but there are always steps you can take to move forward. Whether it's reaching out to a friend, scheduling that first therapy session, or simply allowing yourself to admit that you're struggling, every small action counts. You don't have to have everything figured out to start making progress. You just need to take the first step. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't always come easily. There will be days when the weight of depression feels heavier than others, and that's okay. Healing is a process, not a destination, and it's perfectly normal to have setbacks along the way. The important thing is to keep going, to keep choosing yourself even when it feels difficult, and to keep reminding yourself that you are worthy of a life filled with hope, connection, and fulfillment. The ripple effect: changing the culture one conversation at a time. By choosing to address your own mental health, you're not just helping yourself. You're contributing to a larger cultural shift that's desperately needed. Every time you speak up about your struggles, seek help, or support another man who's going through a tough time, you're helping to dismantle the stigma around men's mental health. You're showing that vulnerability is not a flaw, but a strength, and that real courage lies in facing your challenges head-on. This ripple effect extends beyond your immediate circle. It reaches your family, friends, colleagues, and even those you may never meet but who are inspired by your example. By being open and honest about your experiences, you're paving the way for others to do the same, creating a more compassionate world where men feel empowered to seek the support they need. Creating a legacy of mental wellness for future generations. The changes we make today have the power to impact the next generation. Imagine a world where boys grow up knowing it's okay to express their feelings, where men don't have to hide their struggles, and where mental health is treated with the same care and attention as physical health. By taking action now, we're laying the foundation for that future. A future where strength is defined not by how much you can endure in silence, but by your willingness to be authentic and seek help when needed. As you continue your journey, remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about being human. It's about allowing yourself to feel, to struggle, to heal, and to grow. It's about recognizing that you deserve to live a life that feels good, not just looks good from the outside. Your next steps: putting it all into practice. 1. Reflect on your own narrative. Take some time to consider the messages you've internalized about what it means to be a man and how they've shaped your approach to mental health. What beliefs serve you and which ones hold you back? Use this awareness as a starting point for change. 2. Reach out. Don't wait for the right moment to seek support. Reach out to a friend, family member, or professional today. The sooner you open up, the sooner you can start to feel the benefits of connection and support. 3. Create a mental health toolkit. Identify the strategies that resonate most with you from this book and begin integrating them into your daily life. Whether it's building a routine, practicing mindfulness, or engaging in physical activity, find what works for you and make it a regular part of your self-care. 4. Be a role model. Share your journey with others, whether it's through conversations, social media, or simply by being open about your own experiences. Your vulnerability can inspire others to seek help and break the cycle of silence. 5. Keep learning and growing. Mental health is an ongoing journey. Continue to educate yourself, try new strategies, and remain open to growth. There's no end point, only continuous progress toward a healthier, more fulfilling life. The takeaway: you are not alone and your story matters. Depression might be a part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. You have the power to rewrite your narrative, to reclaim your mental health, and to create a life that feels true to who you are. It's okay to struggle and it's okay to ask for help. What's most important is that you keep moving forward, one step at a time. You are not alone in this journey, and your willingness to face your challenges head-on makes you stronger than you know. There's a whole community out there ready to support you, cheer you on, and remind you that you are worthy of healing. So take that next step, whatever it may be, and know that every effort you make is a step toward a brighter, more hopeful future. Thank you for taking this journey. Here's to new beginnings, to breaking the silence, and to embracing the full, messy, beautiful experience of being human.